Hello again, my name is Darren. We have been working on beginner Greek for about 4 lessons, and today we are on lesson number 5. And lesson number 5 is the imperfect tense. We're going to be working on the active, middle, and passive. So the present is gone, and now we go to the imperfect. And you remember that whenever we, in that first class, we talked about these different tenses. And the imperfect tense, imperfect active indicative and imperfect middle and passive indicative, shows action in the past. It doesn't necessarily show its start or finishing. It just shows that it was going on in the past. And we would use the word was and were to translate that, such as I was loosing or we were loosing is how we would translate that to show that action in the imperfect. Now, notice today we have active, middle, and passive endings. And you're probably thinking, wow, in the first lesson about these verb endings we did active, in the next lesson we did middle and passive. Today we're doing all 3. We're covering a little much, aren't we? Well, once you have the groundwork laid in the first couple of lessons there, you know kind of how this works. So we can move on at a little easier pace, and or a little in the first lesson, this would have considered a fast pace, but now it's considered, an easy pace because you kind of know what's going on. So what we want to do here is I want to list some endings for you. And active, of course, we have singular and plural. All right, and I want to put 1, 2, 3 over there. All right, and this time, here's our endings. On, S, E, amen, etta, on. So one thing you'll notice about the active endings here is the on in the first person plural, or first person singular, and third person plural are the same. So those we tell those by context. And you may also notice that the amen and the etta, you've seen those before, and you spotted those out in the present active ending. So you may be thinking, well, how am I going to know the difference? Well, I'll explain that just here in a minute. But just for the moment, let's go to singular and plural. And plural of the middle and passive. And in the imperfect, the middle and passive are the same. Okay, and we want to number those again. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3. Okay, and I want you to drop over there to page 25 in your book, and you should have been already, I'm sorry, I should have told you this. Page 24 is where we started at today if I didn't mention that. And you see the endings there. And that's main ua2, metha esta onto. And let me get those up here. And we're going to use the variable vowel this time. Okay. Now, I want to explain something that I do in memory work and it's not accurate. I go main ua2, metha esta onto. But you'll notice that's not at all the way that some of them sound, nor is it the way that they're written. It's amen, and that's with the variable vowel in there. U, eta, because we really wouldn't say the word to. I just kind of do that just to help me get through them. Main ua2, metha, ametha, esta, onto. So let's do them accurately. Amen, u, eta, ametha, esta, onta. And we're probably better off to do them that way than my sloppy way of doing them to help me help me to memorize them, because basically it's not correct, and I could very easily be saying the endings with that to sound whenever I shouldn't be saying it. So kind of got to watch me on things like that I do to make my own little shortcuts that honestly I ought not to do. Now you'll notice that some of these endings here you've seen before. Let's try if we were doing present, middle, and passives, it would be mai tai, metha, esta, anta. Okay? So you would have seen some of those, and you've seen some of these endings. Good part is, whenever you see this ending and you see that ending, you can almost know they're first person plural. It's going to pretty much, you know, those endings, like, they don't swap and like suddenly this one is down here or this one is here. The only one we see anything similar to that would be this one and this one here, and then on. But whenever you look at these, you're like thinking, well, how can you tell them apart? Well, let me show you what the story is here. Let's use our word Lou, and let me put it up. Okay, we've got the word luo, and that's where we started at with the word which meant I loose. Okay, so now we're going to change that here, and we're going to make it a first person imperfect active indicative. So that's got to go, and this has to go on. And you think, okay, luon. Well, that wasn't too hard. But there's a little more to it than that, because this has an augment. Okay? I want you to look on page 24 here at the bottom underneath C, and it's going to talk about the augment. Okay? If the vowel ends, if the first letter here is a constant, and that's a constant, then it gets an augment that looks like this. An epsilon. So it's luo, luo. Okay, I'm sorry, luon. Okay, luon. Now, that little symbol right there, plus the ending, tells us that it's an imperfect. That is the key to an imperfect, is that augment right here that sits on it. So, we talked about the plural that look the same. Well, let's look at this like this. First of all, let's put our lu back up. Lu. Okay, now let's put that ending on there. Almond, and you think, well, what's, there's no difference. This would be a present active indicative, first person plural. But whenever we put that augment on the stem over here, then it's lu almond, lu almond. And whenever we do that, we know that it is an imperfect, which would mean, in this case, let's make it, it's active, is what we're working in. So it'd be, we were loosing. Alright, we were loosing. Alright, same way if we're dealing with the passive and in the singular and plural. Let's do an example here in the middle with our word. Of course, we'd have lu, and then we'd have our ending, and let's use the u here, and then of course we'd have the augment here, elu, elu. Okay, and that would be, we're going to do it middle, you are loosing, whoops, that would be present, got to back up here, got to keep the thought train about this, you were loosing yourself. I realize that may not make a lot of sense in the way, but you understand, we're just working with words, trying to understand what they mean. And if this was passive here, we would put it up like, you were being loosed. Alright, so there's the passive form. You were being loosed. So hopefully you've got some kind of idea about some of these imperfect, the middle and passive, and the augment. Now, there's a little more to this augment than what you see right here. One more thing we definitely want to look at. If you're looking on page 24, down in C, if that word begins with a vowel, it changes it just a little bit. Let me think of one of our vocab words here. Let me look at one of our vocab words. The first one for this week is ago. And you haven't seen it yet, but I'll put it up here on the board. Go. Okay? A go means I lead, bring, or go. And it has a smooth breathing there. Well, a go is going to be changed in a different way. If it was going to be an imperfect, basically we would not put the augment like this, because this is not a constant. This is a vowel. If this is a vowel, it lengthens. Okay? So this can get unnerving here, but it goes from an alpha to an eta right there. And the O, of course, if it was first person, singular, would be on. Alright, so now it's a gone. Okay, a gone, because it lengthened it. Now, the easiest way for you to understand this is to go to page 25 and look at the chart there, and it tells you that an alpha becomes an eta, the epsilon becomes an eta, the omicron becomes an omega, the iota becomes a iota with a circumflex over top of it, the upsilon becomes a upsilon with a circumflex over it, the alpha with the iota subscript becomes an eta with a iota subscript, and so on. So that's a list that's probably fairly important that you kind of look at and understand. But this is a part of this that I wouldn't say is super, the augment is fairly simple. It's just the fact that whenever that first letter is a vowel and it lengthens it, sometimes you gotta think about it. But chances are, if you can kind of recognize that word a little bit, you can say, okay, now that lengthened right there, so that's an imperfect. We want to move on to our vocabulary words, and we want to add 14 more words to your Greek vocabulary. And let's take a look at them up here and kind of pronounce them. First one up here's got a smooth breathing, a go. A go means I lead, bring, or go. A go. Don't think I put up my acute accent mark there. Nipto. Nipto means I wash. And this time it means I wash my hands, my feet. I wash part of me. Where yesterday we learned a word called luo, which means last week, luo, and that meant I wash all of me. Okay, so nipto, I wash part of me. I wash. Okay? Iro. Iro. Now, iro means I take up or bear. I take up or bear. Iro. Krodzo. Krodzo means I cry out. Krodzo, I cry out. Mellow. Mellow means I'm about to. As in, I'm about to do something. It's just getting ready to happen. And there's been lots of conversations over that word, written things about the word mellow and understanding that in the New Testament, exactly what's meant. Mellow, I'm about to. Fellow, or I'm sorry, thinking to the wrong week, aren't I? Thero, thero. And thero there means I bear or carry. Thero, I bear or carry. To me, thero and iro, it's easy to get mixed up. I take up or bear. Thero, I bear or carry. Okay, in your book, I believe this is a typo. It's got a rough breathing. I believe that's a smooth breathing there. Estheo. Estheo. And estheo means I eat. Estheo, I eat. Okay? Now we go up here to the top. Suruo. Suruo means I drag. I drag. Okay, over here we've got Cairo. Cairo. I rejoice. I go down to Egypt to Cairo and I rejoice because I'm there. Cairo. Cairo. Lepo. Lepo means I leave or abandon. I leave or abandon. Lepo. Duluo. Duluo means I serve. Now, there's another word later we'll come across called doulos. It means bondservant or servant. So, duluo, I serve. Okay, rough breathing right here. Hamartano. Hamartano. Hamartano means I sin. Hamartano, I sin. Okay, this is a smooth breathing here. Arisco. Arisco. And now that one right there sounds real familiar, doesn't it? Arisco means I please. Arisco, I please. Okay, the last one, patho. Patho. Patho means I persuade. I persuade. Patho. I persuade. So, we have a go means I lead, bring, or go. Nipto means I wash, as in part of me, not all of me at once. Iro is I take up or bear. I still find those hard to keep apart between that one and this one. Krodzo is I cry out. Mellow is I am about to. And that's like I'm about to do something. Thero, I bear or carry. And esthio, I eat. Okay, we come over here. Suruo is I drag. I realize some of my writing is kind of sloppy here, but that's okay. Cairo is I rejoice. I'm pretty much that way all the time. Okay, not the rejoicing, the sloppy writing. Okay, lepo is I leave or abandon. Okay, and duluo is I serve. Okay, duluo I serve. Hamartano here is I sin. Arisco is I please. And patho is I persuade. All right, and yes. So, you've got the opportunity here to look at these words and to learn these words, and you want to do your very best to memorize these, because that's just key in understanding this language, is to do that. I hate to do this, guys, but for what I'm doing, actually I'll try to leave them up there. Now, if I could leave those up there on here, boy, I'll tell you, you can't even tell those are easy. Hard enough to read the Greek words, huh? Let alone my English words. That's horrible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out a couple of these and try to change them to imperfect, just for examples up here. Let's take duluo and let's change it to an imperfect here. Let me write some endings up here real quick of the active. Okay, on, es, amen, eta, on. I don't honestly know if you can see those very well. I just put them up there for us to look at. On, ss, singular, ameneta, on, plural. Okay, let's try to change this here to an imperfect second person indicative. Yes, an imperfect active second person indicative. So that would be this one right here, s, and then we would have thus. So it would be edulues. Edulues. All right? And that right there would tell us that I know, second person, you were what? Serving. Okay, you were serving. Now, let's pick another one here. Let's use this hamartano, word for sin. It had an alpha there at the beginning, so we know that this one here is going to lengthen to an eta, and then we'll do a first person here. All right, so that's what's going to happen to that, and now we know it's a It's an imperfect, and it's active because it's active ending, and it's first person singular. So it's hey. It was ha. Now it's hey martanon. Hey martanon, and that word would mean that I. Okay, this is imperfect, so it'll be I was sinning. Okay, I was sinning. I was sinning. Let's see here. Let's do one more here. Let's do this this one over here. Kradzo. Kradzo. Okay, we know that that's a constant, so we're going to put the epsilon on there, and we're going to lose this ending. Let's go for a first person plural, which would be amen. Alright, so now it is a imperfect, active, indicative, first person, plural. So that would be ekrod's amen. Ekrod's amen. Kind of hard to say. And that word would mean we were crying out. Right? We were crying out. Okay. Middle and passive. Same principles here apply. So there's just a couple examples of how we could do those things. For your homework today, I want you to turn to page 26, and your homework is actually found on page 26 and 27 right here. But I want you to notice that it is, I want you to do it says first 6 on that page, then you have to go to 27, page 27, and do 7 through 10 off that page. And they'll tell you if they're middle or passive. So, that's what I want you to do for homework. Make sure you're doing that homework. It's a big help. One more thing I want to talk about, and this is just something that more or less you need to be aware of, but if you look on page 26 and there's a D on that page, it talks about something called the movable nu. Okay, the movable nu, basically in like the imperfect tense or in those ones showing past tense, in the third person, like whichever would be the right there, sometimes this nu shows up. And while you do sound it out, it doesn't change the ending. Okay? Now, I realize that this seems like, you're like, what on earth am I talking about? And I just want you to be aware, because even in your homework, you may find some that have this. Now, another ending that this would show up on would be, that's not going to work. Okay, usi is, oase, amen, and usi is a third person plural, but sometimes at the end of that usi ending, there's this N, so it makes it usin. Usin. And we sound it out. It's not like the Yoda subscript that we don't hear, but it doesn't change your endings. Okay? It's there. You can read more about that in here. You know, I realize that you probably a lot of questions like, why? Why? Why is that there? You know, what I need you to be concerned about is the fact that it is there, and sometimes it shows up, and I just don't want it throwing you off. Whenever you see it, you say usin, but you actually just know, okay, that's a third person plural, or that there, that nu is on there on the third person singular. Okay, so just be aware of that movable nu, and do your homework, and let's do 1 or 2 more examples here. Let's do this one here. Okay, and luometha. Obviously, our root word here is right here, and that would have been luo. So luo meant I wash, one of the first words that we've worked with. It's got that augment there to it. It's got the epsilon. And then also it's got the ending on it, metha. And we know that metha is a middle or passive ending, right? In perfect, because it's got that. So we're going to treat it as middle. So this would be an imperfect, middle, indicative. And what is metha? So it's main tu, ametha, esta onto. So that would be a first person plural ending there. So now we would say this, like, since we're going to say it middle, and first person plural would be we, and it would be we in past. We were loosing ourselves. Okay? We were loosing ourselves. Since it can change, and it could be a passive, let's change that right there, and let's make it an imperfect, passive, indicative, first person, plural. And now let's say it like we would say it was passive. And that was, we would say it like this. We were being washed. Okay, we were being washed. So hopefully you got a little grasp there on it. Augment, very important to the imperfect tense. And also, remember those endings. Don't forget about those endings. But in doing so, we can begin getting a grasp here of the middle and the passive and the active endings. And you can do this. If you just keep trying and keep working at it, I know you can do it. And the benefit is far beyond the effort that you're going to have to put into this. So just keep working at it, and I'll see you again next week.